The United States has contracted a disease which is deadly, has killed 206,000 Americans, and sickened more than 7 million. Some people recover from it, and some people don't. In this case, the leader of the free world. Let's go to Michael Beschloss, NBC News presidential historian, who's here to give us a little context. I saw a tweet from you today about what happened 101 years ago today.
Exactly right. Of all things, Woodrow Wilson suffered a massive stroke in the White House, and he showed us how you do not deal with a situation where you have a life-threatening illness. Wilson tried to conceal how bad his stroke was, and he was basically in bed, couldn't function, wouldn't talk to his vice president, wouldn't let his cabinet meet, had his wife basically be sort of a semi-president and make an awful lot of decisions. And the result of that was that people thought the worst. They were completely rattled because it was right after World War I. And so the lesson here is that if you are president nowadays who has a life-threatening illness, release as much information you can about your condition so that Americans can be reassured, and at the same time, make sure that we know how you're being treated. If you do not do that, you're not fulfilling your responsibility as president.
What has happened so far has happened so quickly. We've been dealing with this coronavirus since the beginning of the year, really. But it really hit in the United States and in Washington in late February, and then in New York City in an enormous way in March. And that's when the country began to shut down. And throughout all of that, one constant has been that, you know, we're constantly hearing from the president in one way or another about it. Then all of a sudden today, it had hit at the seat of our government. And it was shocking. And I wonder if you could put it in historical context with similar events with other presidents. I just don't remember anything of this magnitude, not in the last 35 years.
No,
anyway.
I think you're right, Shep. I think you're doing great. I can't think of anything that would be remotely similar to this. You've got a president who is 1 month away from running for re-election, hospitalized. We've never seen that before in our history. The closest we've come was 1956. President Eisenhower had an attack of ileitis, needed to have intestinal surgery at the old Walter Reed Army Hospital. And he said, you know, I think presidents are too secretive about their medical conditions. You know, here I am trying to get people to think that I could carry on for 4 more years and I can function. I will have my doctors and my aides tell the American people as much as they want to know. And they really did. They told us almost too much, you know, about his bowel movements, details that we'd never seen before from a president. But that was the right thing to do. A lot of people tonight are rattled. You know, we depend on a president, whether people like him or not, for our security. What if there's a war? What if there's a disaster? We need to be reassured that President Trump is 100% able to function. And also, he's got to make the case that even despite this terrible ordeal, which you wouldn't wish on anyone, he's going to be able to lead for 4 more years if reelected. That's his case to make.
And those around him, should we expect to hear from a Mike Pence or someone else in the higher echelon of government now, some reassuring words, some comfort? Historically, we have.
Yeah, it would be nice to get some comfort, but what we really need is truth. Yeah. I mean, if there's good news, wonderful, but if there's not, you know, Franklin Roosevelt at the beginning of World War II said to Americans, it's bad news, folks, and I'm going to level with you. That's what we need to hear from a president. So, you know, for a vice president to give us words of comfort that are not warranted by reality, that would be almost worse than saying nothing at all.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.